becomes her shield. Her truth is bleeding. Marie Santiago is a brave rider, fearless truth speaker, setting hearts on fire.
America's protective forces. Why police and National Guard prioritize order over everyday people in pain. Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. We're cutting right to the heart of something that's been weighing heavy on so many of us. Why don't the police and National Guard step in faster, or at all, when regular folks are suffering from things like hunger, homelessness, mental health breakdowns, or economic collapse? Instead, we see them roll out quick when there's a protest, property damage, or something that threatens authority and order. This isn't some wild theory, it's how the whole system is built. And in 2026, with all the recent deployments and controversies, it's more obvious than ever. Let's break it down clearly, step by step, so you get the full picture and understand exactly why this happens. The big truth first. These forces aren't primarily designed to put people first, they're structured to protect order first. And those two goals, they clash hard. Police departments and the National Guard answer upward to bosses, governors, mayors, federal commands, not directly to you and me on the street. When leaders see a threat to property, the state, or their own power, they call in the troops fast. But when civilians are quietly hurting, it often gets labeled as not our job or gets delayed until it's too late. Let's look at the loyalty issue. Their chain of command is vertical, straight up the ladder. Police report to chiefs, who report to mayors or governors. The National Guard usually falls under state governors for domestic stuff, but can switch to federal control under the president. If a governor or mayor hesitates, maybe because of politics, optics, or calculations, those boots on the ground stay put. Helping people in need becomes optional. Following orders is non-negotiable. We've seen this in real time with recent federal overrides, where the president has pushed National Guard into cities over governors' objections, but only for things like protests or immigration enforcement, not widespread humanitarian aid for things like mental health or poverty crises. Next, their training and rulebook focus on control, not care. Officers and Guard members are drilled hard on containment, compliance, crowd management, and handling threats like riots or invasions. They're great at that. But when the problem is trauma, economic despair, or social breakdown that doesn't look explosive, it falls outside their main toolkit. Quiet suffering, like families skipping meals, people living on the streets, or folks in mental health spirals, gets dismissed as not our jurisdiction. Translation: if you're drowning slowly, you're often invisible to the system meant to protect you. Leaders also fear setting precedents. If police or Guard truly step up against systemic neglect, corruption, or failures, like demanding better housing, mental health support, or economic relief, it shines a spotlight on who's responsible. That means potential lawsuits, investigations, and political fallout. So they stall, call it monitoring, or wait for things to boil over. Civilians end up feeling abandoned while the higher-ups protect their own positions. Then there's the optics game. Sending in forces looks aggressive and can backfire on camera. Ignoring a crisis looks weak. Leaders pick the path that saves their careers, usually waiting until chaos is impossible to ignore when media pressure forces action. By then, the real damage to people has already happened. We've seen quick mobilizations for protests or unrest in cities, but slower or absent responses for ongoing issues like homelessness encampments or mental health emergencies, unless they turn into something that threatens public order. Inside the forces, there's real conflict too. Plenty of officers and Guard members genuinely want to help. They live in these communities, see the pain up close. But the institutions punish stepping out of line faster than they reward doing the right thing. Speak up against bad policy, you get sidelined. Disobey an order, discipline hits hard. The uniform doesn't give much room for moral independence. And here's the deepest layer. If these forces openly sided with everyday people against leadership failures, the whole illusion of control would crack. Police and Guard often act as a buffer, absorbing public anger so leaders don't have to face it directly. Neutrality gets enforced because unity among civilians would strip away their leverage. That's why you see rapid response for protests or property threats, fast action to restore order, but slow or no action for human suffering like widespread hunger or untreated mental illness. This doesn't mean every officer or guard member lacks heart. Far from it. Many serve with real compassion. The problem is the system they operate in. It puts stability and authority ahead of justice and care. When a government truly serves people, protective forces act proactively, openly, and humanely, helping before things explode. When it doesn't, they become reactive, held back, and strategically absent. So why aren't police and National Guard stepping in more for the real, everyday crises? Because doing so would force them to confront, and maybe challenge, the very systems they're sworn to uphold. That line is one leadership doesn't want crossed. Not yet, but history shows something powerful. When protection for ordinary people vanishes, the legitimacy of those in charge is already fading. We're seeing that play out now. People are noticing the double standards, the quick crackdowns on dissent versus the neglect of suffering. This awareness is building, and it's time we demand better. Forces that prioritize human lives over order alone, we can change this. By speaking up, staying informed, and holding leaders accountable, we push for a system where care comes first. The truth is out there, and it's time to act on it. America's dangerous slide. Is authoritarianism taking hold in 2026? Hey friends, let's get real about what's happening in our country right now. It's January 2026, and the warning lights are flashing bright. America is drifting toward authoritarianism, but it's not a done deal yet. This isn't some dramatic movie plot with tanks rolling in. It's a slow, sneaky shift that creeps in under the banner of safety, order, and protecting us. The signs are there, clear as day, from massive executive overreach to attacks on free speech and dissent. But here's the hopeful truth. We're still at a crossroads, not a dead end. Our courts push back sometimes, states resist, and everyday people keep arguing loudly and refusing to stay quiet. Let's break this down honestly so you see exactly how it works and why we can't afford to look away. Authoritarianism doesn't announce itself with a big fanfare. It normalizes itself bit by bit. Think about emergency powers that start temporary, but never really end. Surveillance sold as protection from threats, dissent painted as dangerous extremism, obedience wrapped up as true patriotism, and laws enforced unevenly but always explained away smoothly. We're seeing all of this in real time. Take executive orders, hundreds in 2025 alone, bypassing Congress on everything from immigration crackdowns to reshaping federal agencies. Leaders rule by decree when things are urgent, skipping real debate. This isn't new, but the scale and speed in the current administration have experts calling it unprecedented, with scholars warning of a swift move toward competitive authoritarianism. Elections still happen, but the playing field is rigged against opposition through abuse of power, targeting critics, and politicizing institutions. Protests? They're allowed, but only if they're quiet, short, and don't really change anything. Step over that line, and suddenly you're labeled a threat. We've seen rhetoric framing opponents as enemies within. Calls to use the military domestically against perceived internal dangers, echoing dark historical patterns from places like Pinochet's Chile. Dissent gets reframed as terrorism or conspiracy, with investigations into activists, nonprofits, and even journalists who dare report inconvenient facts. Censorship. It's now called misinformation control or restoring free speech, while actually targeting voices that criticize the administration. Independent media faces threats, bans from press pools, lawsuits against major outlets, FBI searches of reporters' homes, pledges required from Pentagon journalists that limit what they can report. This chills free expression, making people think twice before speaking truth. Fear justifies force, and force justifies silence. Surveillance ramps up under national security pretexts, institutions get purged or politicized, career civil servants replaced with loyalists, independent bodies weakened. The military gets pulled into domestic roles, blurring lines that should stay clear to protect democracy. But here's the crucial point people often miss. True authoritarianism doesn't need one permanent dictator. It thrives with rotating leaders, elections that look real on the surface, flags waving everywhere, as long as real power stays insulated from public accountability. America's biggest risk isn't a single strongman, it's institutional hardening, where systems protect themselves and the elite instead of everyday people. Yet America still has real friction that authoritarian systems hate. Courts have blocked some overreaches, states push back on federal mandates, our culture thrives on loud debate, and most folks don't fully trust unchecked authority. We're too disobedient, too armed with information despite the noise, too chaotic to lock down easily. That's why these control efforts often look sloppy, angry, and inconsistent, not the smooth confidence of a secure regime, but the anxiety of leaders who know the ground is shifting, the key distinction. Every time someone shrugs and says, "It doesn't affect me, it's just temporary. At least it's not worse," or "just comply and get on with life," that's the quiet vote authoritarianism needs to win. But every time we demand transparency, real limits on power, equal application of laws, and the right to question without punishment, that keeps the door from slamming shut. We are all alone in this. National Guard and police are not on our side. The plan is that we lose our cool and fight back so that they can then have an excuse to attack us and wipe us from existence. The laws were only written against us for these moments, where they can abuse us and we cannot defend ourselves. Will America fully slide into authoritarianism? Only if enough of us trade vigilance for convenience, let fear win every argument, and decide silence feels safer than truth. History is brutally clear. Authoritarianism doesn't conquer nations outright. Nations consent to it piece by piece when exhaustion beats courage. Right now, in 2026, we're at a crossroads, not a conclusion. The story is still being written in public, imperfectly, loudly. Experts from surveys of political scientists to reports like VDem and Bright Line Watch show sharp drops in Democratic ratings, with warnings of the fastest autocratization in modern U.S. history without a coup. But elections remain a path to reversal. Courts sometimes resist, and people are noticing this drift is real and accelerating, but it's not inevitable. We have the tools, our voices, our votes, our refusal to stay quiet. The choice is ours, comfort over freedom or courage over convenience. Let's choose the hard road of truth and accountability before it's too late. The outcome depends on us. If this message spoke to you, even just a little, stay connected with me by following. Your support truly matters more than you realize, and every moment you take to listen is deeply appreciated. Please leave a like on this video and share your thoughts in the comments after hearing the story. Follow and subscribe so you never miss what comes next. Your support keeps the space alive. It costs nothing, yet it means everything to me. Showing love through engagement helps me continue creating, speaking truth, and showing up consistently. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for listening, for supporting, and for standing with me. Crowning Thoughts True Speaker Copyright 2025 by Santiago D.C. Maria, licensed under Creative Commons Attribution. I love you all. I appreciate every one of you, and I thank you for your time. Stay blessed.
Say